Hi friends, welcome or welcome back. My name is Sherry and this is Sherry's Shelves. For today's video, I wanted to bring you a list of my top 10 favorite horror books. I initially wanted to include thrillers in this list as well. However, once I started making the list, it was pretty clear to me that thrillers don't really belong on a list with these specific books, and you'll see why. If a top 10 thriller list is something that you would like to see from me, definitely let me know in the comments below and I can make that happen for you. This was a fun list to make, but a hard list to make. I have read so many good horror books over the past couple years. I think that this list truly shows what works for me and what I gravitate towards, but I do want to specify that I have read and loved plenty of horror books that are a lot more tame than the ones on this list. I wouldn't widely recommend some of the books on this list only because they have pretty specific trigger warnings. So if that is something that you need to look up, definitely look that up prior to reading these. I am really excited though to see if anybody reads any of the books on this list and if they love them too. I love talking about my favorite books, so let's get into the list. Number 10 is We Need to Do Something by Max Booth III. This is a book about a dysfunctional family that is trapped in a bathroom during a tornado warning. I feel like the isolation and the sense of growing paranoia between the characters was done so well in this book. I can't really say too much about it though because the synopsis is really short. It is definitely one that I would recommend though if you can handle that kind of claustrophobic feeling. This does have a movie adaptation, but I definitely recommend the book over the movie. Number 9 is Scanlines by Todd Kiesling. This is a book about a group of teenagers that unintentionally watch a pretty disturbing video. They thought that this video was an urban legend. They didn't think that it existed. After watching the video, things start to go downhill really fast for them in a very, very bad way. This book stressed me out so much. It's pretty fast-paced. It's only about 120 pages. It packs so much punch into those 120 pages, though. It's very reminiscent of The Ring, the book and the movie. Although I feel like this book was better than both the movie and the book. Number 8 is The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. Obviously a classic. In case you haven't heard of it, this is about an 11-year-old girl named Reagan that develops some strange symptoms and violent behaviors that doctors don't really have an explanation for. Her mother is trying to find somebody that can help. She comes across a priest/psychiatrist named Damien Karras that thinks he knows exactly what's wrong with her. This is obviously a possession story. I haven't really liked many possession stories more than this one because I always end up comparing it because this one's a classic, so I obviously will, compare them. This is my favorite movie. The 1973 original movie is my absolute favorite to watch during Halloween. I listened to this on audio and it was narrated by the author. I highly recommend it, especially if you slow it down. If you're a fast listener, if you slow it down to 1.5 times speed or below, I feel like his narration kind of adds to that really spooky atmosphere. Number 7 is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This story follows Louise, who just finds out that her parents passed away unexpectedly, so she needs to go to her childhood home in North Carolina to clean out the house and sell it, but the house has other plans. I think Grady Hendrix is the master of mixing humor with horror. He just does it so well. I have read all of his, maybe not all of his books. I think I've read most of his books. But this one really hit me with the themes and the grief, and it just really spoke to me. I really loved the interactions between Louise and Mark in this. They had some arguments that were absolutely hilarious. Also, puppets. Puppets and dolls are scary. They freak me out. I do not like the dolls that have real eyes. They look like they're staring at you, and I just don't like them. No, nope. Number 6 is We Spread by Ian Reid. This is a literary character focused story about an elderly woman named Penny who just moved into a long-term care facility. She is having a good time there. She's making friends, but then eventually she starts feeling uneasy and like she can't trust the nurses or doctors or the other people that live there. I instantly connected with Penny. I thought she was a fantastic character, and I feel like this is a very beautifully written story. I read this almost 3 years ago, and I still think about it. So that's saying something. There's so many that I've read that I forget because they just aren't that memorable. This one was definitely memorable for me, because I think what makes this story scary is it kind of forces you to look at mental decline as you age, and it's not something that you think about until you start aging. So I just really liked this one. I thought that it was really clever, pointing out something that was scary that people don't normally think about. We have a visitor. Say hi. This is Ham. He is about 1.5 years old. Hi. Ow. Hi. Hi. Hello? I can't hold you. Number 5 is Blanky by Keelan Patrick Burke. This is a dark and depressing story about a man named Steve who just recently lost his infant daughter. He is at home alone one night when he hears a noise coming from what used to be her bedroom. And whenever he goes up to check out the noise, he finds her blanket on the floor. But her blanket was buried with her, so he doesn't know how the blanket ended up in her bedroom. This was such a sad story, obviously. Well, for obvious reasons, this was a very sad story. It was a very hard book to read, but I feel like it was really well done in terms of how Steve and his wife's grief are handled. And it had a few unexpected twists in there also that I was pretty surprised by. I don't know if you can see her or not. I'll put it in if you can see her. That's Rue. We call her Beans. She is about... Oh my gosh, I have too many cats. I think she's 2. I found her and her sister underneath my front porch, and obviously she had to come inside because that's just what happens around here. Number 4 is Tender as the Flesh by Augustina Bastarrica. This was a really, really unsettling book. It is a dystopian horror novel about cannibalism, which has been made legal after a virus makes animals poisonous to humans. The story follows Marcus, who works in a human processing plant. I don't want to go into too much detail about this because I don't want to make anybody sick. But I feel like it did exactly what the author intended it to do. It was uncomfortable and sad and terrifying because I feel like some of the things that happened in this book were believable. It's something that could happen in real life, which is probably the scariest thing for me personally, is things that are realistic. So this one just really bothered me. Obviously, that's why it's on the top, because I like being unsettled. That's what horror books are supposed to do. They're supposed to make you scared and terrified and unsettled and uncomfortable. And this one did exactly that for me. Number 3 is Ghost Eaters by Clay McLeod Chapman. Ghost Eaters follows Erin, who can't seem to stop being there for her ex-boyfriend, Silas. Whenever he calls her to pick him up from rehab, she goes to pick him up, and shortly after, he passes away from an overdose. Erin is obviously grieving over his loss, but then a friend offers her a chance to see him again through a new drug called Ghost. That concept, how far would you go to see a loved one again, really captured my attention, and I absolutely loved this book. It broke my heart. This was definitely unsettling in other ways. There was body horror, not knowing what is real and what's a hallucination. It was just overall a fantastic book that will probably stick with me for years. Oh, I can't believe I put this book on this list. I had to, though. Number 2 is Gone to See the Riverman by Christopher Triana. This follows Lori, who is obsessed with a convicted serial killer named Edmund. She visits him in prison and writes him letters and is trying to develop a relationship with him. And he asks her if she can go to a cabin in the woods and get a key and deliver it to someone known as the Riverman. So she says yes, and she takes her disabled sister with her into the woods. One thing I want to mention here is that the disability rep in this book is not good at all. So just be aware of that going in. As they travel through the woods, you start learning more about Lori's past and kind of what made her into the person that she is. She is not a great person. She is a really, really dislikable character for many, many reasons. I had a really hard time putting this book down, though, because it felt like it was kind of spiraling out of control. There were so many things in this book that shocked me, and I just needed to know where it was going and how far it was going to spiral. I don't think that I will ever forget what happens in this book, even though sometimes I really want to. Okay, we made it to number 1. Number 1 is Crossroads by Laurel Hightower. This is about a woman named Chris whose son passes away in a car accident. She goes to visit the roadside memorial where the crash occurred. She cuts her finger, a drop of blood falls to the ground, and then later that night she swears she sees him outside of her window. I'm a mom with 2 teenagers, so this book destroyed me, and I felt so horrible for Chris and her situation. She makes some questionable choices throughout the course of this book, but I feel like I kind of understood where she was coming from and why she would make such extreme choices. And I read this book in only a couple hours, which is really fast for me whenever I'm reading physically with my eyes. I'm a very slow reader. But I blew through it in only a couple hours because I needed to know if this woman was going to be okay. I'm not sure if this happens to other people, but every now and again I read a book that kind of puts life into perspective, like where I'm not really expecting it. So you don't really expect that out of a horror book, but I think part of the reason why I love this so much is because it did make me put things into perspective and made me appreciate life a little bit more. This book is definitely special to me. I don't think that I will ever read a book that I loved as much as this one. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have read any of these books and they're also favorites of yours, please let me know down in the comments. I love talking about these books. Also, if you have any recommendations for me, that would be fantastic. I love reading recommendations from other people, especially if there's something compared to one of the books that are on this list. I do have a couple of honorable mentions here that I would more widely recommend. Jack and Jill by Keelan Patrick Burke, Stay on the Line by Clay McLeod Chapman, Cirque Berserk by Jessica Guess, My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix, Episode 13 by Craig DeLuey, and Curse of the Reaper by Brian McCauley. I loved these books also. They, in any given day, they could have made it onto this list as well. I really enjoyed all of them. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time. Bye.